Welcome to the You Need More Money podcast. I'm your host, Matt Manero, where I come to you every week from my studio in Dallas, Texas. And we got a full house today. We've never had this many people in our little studio. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of us. We're all pretty big dudes except for Billy. Billy, you're about the right size. So welcome Nathan Walker to the show.
Thank you, man. Glad to be here.
I want to just give a shout out to your Casey, what is your role in the organization?
Yeah, good question. Technically, I'm the VP of Operations for Level Up in the Walker Group.
Well, my friend, you have fantastic follow-up skills. It wasn't a matter of me not wanting Nathan or that I'm at a different level than Nathan. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with two guys being busy and trying to match up schedules. And if more people realize that simple fact, they would be a lot more successful in the sales game, because everyone thinks that the guy didn't return my phone call. He hates me. I suck. I did something wrong. They don't want to do it.
Sure.
We're busy.
Yeah.
You get it? We're busy. So call us 7 times and something will happen. And so I'm appreciative of you, Casey. You did a super job of following up to make this thing happen.
As am I, Casey. Thank you.
But not to hear another takeaway for the audience. It wasn't just phone. It was all, right? It was instant. It was Instagram instant messaging. It was Facebook direct messaging. It was Twitter too. It was all of it.
Yeah.
You couldn't ignore that. Hey, this is going to happen. So we might as well just pick a damn day.
I'm trying to figure out how you communicate. That's it. Some people answer the phone. Some people answer text. Yes. I mean, we got to hit it all different ways.
You do, and that's, I think, what makes it a little bit more difficult today than in the old days. I think there's a heck of a lot more opportunity for people today, but it is a little bit more difficult because you got to be good at more than just doing the phone.
Yeah.
Right.
There's about 0 chance of me answering the phone, but you hit me. But seriously, or like people email even. I don't answer emails anymore because it gets so many of them. But if you text me or if you message me on Facebook, like, better chance of getting me.
Yeah, it's so true. My buddy R.J. Grimshaw, who's the CEO of a bank that I do a lot of business with, says that he thinks cold calling is dead, and we do a lot of cold calling in here.
Yeah.
But his stance is pure cold calling is dead because it's a call after there's research been done. So he wants his guys to do the Google search on the company, to connect on LinkedIn, to see where they are on social, do a little trolling, a little fact-finding, and then hit the call with the reason for my phone call is I'm a huge fan of the Cubs just like you. That's right?
That's a good point.
That's his version of why cold calling is dead.
I guess I could agree with that a little bit.
So welcome to the show. What brings you to Dallas, man? I still haven't figured that out.
Yeah, so actually I'll be at a big event tomorrow. Actually, it starts tonight.
What is it? What's the event?
So it's called the F4 Mega Conference. One of the companies that I'm an owner of is called Eco Technologies International. We manufacture and distribute residential energy savings products. So we do different types of insulation, solar-powered attic ventilation, things like that. So
Got it.
I'm an owner of that company, but I also have the largest dealership of that company in the U.S. too. So that's really where I've made my money.
When you say dealer, you mean installer?
Well, so I have offices all over the country buying the products and selling them to consumer.
Okay, gotcha.
So Eco Technologies is a manufacturer, and then my business is the company that sells it to the consumer. I guess. So anyway, every year they have their big national convention. The majority shareholder, Billy Cox, lives here in Dallas. So we usually do our conventions here in Dallas. I've been coming here for years to do these. So do sales training, do some recognition, big deal.
Boy, there used to be a company in Dallas called Efficient Attic Systems. Does that ring a bell?
I've never heard of it.
Dude, I'd never seen a company go after it like they did in that attic insulation concept with the radiant barrier.
Sure.
Remember when all that was coming on?
Yeah.
Am I talking a similar language to the
So we manufacture a product similar to that, a much better updated version of that.
Okay.
Yep. So that's what that's essentially what we do. We help homeowners lower their energy consumption.
Yeah, so you're talking, it's not like just that flimsy tinfoil that they'd come up and staple it
to
your
rafters. It's a totally different, whole different thing. But yeah, I mean, I have offices all over the U.S., mainly in the Midwest. There's dealers in almost every state in the country, but my offices are predominantly Indiana, Illinois, Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Kentucky.
How do you get into that business?
It's crazy, man. I grew up, I was selling fire protection. So my first job was going door to door selling security and fire protection.
Residential.
Residential. Ironically enough, a lot of people don't know this, but we kind of hit a niche market in the Amish community. So my uncle in 1994 started getting some Amish customers. And when I came into the business in 2001, late 2001, 2002, I'm like, dude, there's a niche here. Like, I was just a kid. It was my first job. But I'm like, path of least resistance. They know us. They like us. It's easy. So anyway, I built my first...
I can talk Amish.
I built my first $1 million business
Nice.
selling fire alarms to the Amish.
Interesting. Now, why did the Amish care about that? What made it compelling to them?
Well, for number one, the Amish didn't know they cared about it. We had to actually create the need for it within the community because they didn't think they had a problem. But a couple things. Number one, the Amish don't have electricity, so they don't have hardwired alarms in their homes. So most Amish homes have 0 early warning devices of any kind. You couple that with their issues with technology, they're basically left sitting there with no way to know if there is a problem. Then you add to the fact that they have fire all throughout their house. They heat their home with wood stoves, coal stoves. They have gas lines run through their walls with little mantles for light. So, I mean, they're at high risk for fire.
Yeah, no kidding.
Also, they don't have forced heat, so they close off all their windows. It's tight, it's airtight, so one little fire can asphyxiate them quickly. So anyway, there's a need for it, and we, helped them realize how big of a need it was and solved the problem for them.
Who was the buyer of that? The man of the household or the woman of the household?
Interesting. So the man of the house is that's who you think makes the decision, but that was a very emotional purchase. So the women, the wife typically influenced that decision very heavily.
And so those were battery operated systems.
Yep, standalone,
you couldn't power up.
lithium powered batteries. We have a smoke detector that has a 10-year battery on it. So yeah, I mean, we go in and we also use a heat detector that was just a fully mechanical heat detector that we could put by stoves and things like that would go off if they made a mistake.
Got it.
We have my family alone has like 1,500 life-saving testimonials where people say that the alarms went off because of that. So that was the business I was in. Ironically enough, Eco Technologies International bought the alarm company that we were buying our product from, which gave me an opportunity to kind of look and see what products they dealt with. And I heard about the energy saving stuff. I already had a good business, but it's a long story behind it. But the real story is I was bored. I wasn't able to scale the way I wanted to. I was locked into this small community, and I wanted to go out and grow big businesses. And so that's how I got introduced with them.
Look, I've heard you mention your uncle a few times here,
Sure.
right? So was your uncle an influencer in your life?
Huge influencer.
Were you? Why he became a father figure position for you?
Well, so I have a dad and mom that I grew up in a great loving home, but I grew up in a broke home. I mean,
financially broke or emotionally?
No, emotionally great, financially not so great.
Okay.
And so I grew up in a home where I listened to my parents fight about money every week at least. I watched them, struggle to pay the bills. We couldn't go on vacations because of money. We would go on a camping trip or something. I remember as a kid, I put a tent in the backyard during summer. That was that was what we did. And I didn't know any different because I was a kid and they loved me and I had a great time. But I watched my mom and dad really struggle. And so when I got out of high school and was enrolled in college, I had an uncle from Michigan that came down and said, dude, you need to get in sales. He didn't call me dude,
But he didn't support college? He was like, I want you in the workforce? Really?
He didn't. He said, you know what? You're going to go to school to be in business management. Best case scenario, you'll make 60, 70 grand a year out of college. You might make 100 and 150. They'll teach you how to get a loan, teach you how to do all that. I could teach you how to make millions, is what he said. My parents hated him for it for a short amount of time. They were
You
pissed.
got brothers and sisters?
A little brother that was 6 years, he's 6 years younger than me, yeah.
So what was the conversation at the dinner table? What was your old man telling you? Work hard?
My dad and mom were telling me, look, we didn't go to college and we're struggling. So the fact that we're going through what we're going through right now is because we didn't go to college, when in reality, that might have improved their situation, but I knew people that had gone to college and had better jobs that were still broke and fighting, So it was a tough call for an 18-year-old boy to make. I actually didn't tell my parents I was quitting college. I just kind of started going and selling. I made $800 in a day, in between college classes selling fire protection. I'm like, what the hell am I doing? So that's how I got into sales, and that impacted the rest of my life.
And your uncle was, in essence, this mentor for you.
He was.
He is still to this day?
Yeah, I mean.
Have you surpassed his success?
Yeah.
You have.
I have,
And
yeah.
how does he take that? Is he happy
He's
about
really
that?
happy for me. Yeah, he is. And you know, he was 65 years old at the time. So he was already one of the reasons I think he wanted to recruit me and his son and some of the other younger guys is he was kind of ready to, you know, he had worked his ass off for years, you know.
Got it.
So yeah, I mean, what he, you know, I think the best year they ever had was maybe like $1 million, $1.2 million in that business. We did 18 million last year collectively throughout, throughout our companies. So yeah, we've surpassed that.
This is your father's brother, your mother's brother?
It's actually my grandfather's brother.
Your
So it's a great
grandfather's
uncle.
brother. Wow, no kidding.
Yeah.
I gotcha. So when you say his son is
My cousin.
Your cousin.
Yep.
Yeah.
And he and I were partners for a while in that fire alarm business. The first business that I started, he and I were partners together on.
So clearly it's a sales organization.
100%.
But you are a sales guy, or you're an operations guy, or you're a growth guy, or you're a motivation guy? What is it?
I made my money selling.
Yeah.
You know, that's where it came from. It's funny. I'm glad you asked that. Most people don't ask that question.
I'm going through the same thing myself, right? I mean, I'm a sales guy too.
Sure.
But the evolution after all of these years allow you and sometimes force you to reinvent yourself as we get closer to our potential. But it causes shrapnel, man. It you know, a lot of times I look back to it and all I see is smoking pavement.
Yeah,
you know?
100%. So the interesting thing is that I learned that my first thought was that I need to be in sales. That's how I'll make a good living. Well, what I found is that if I get sick, or something happens to me, if I don't want to go, I mean, look, at 20 years old, some days I just don't want to go to work. You know, I was immature. I don't make any money, you know. So it started off, I was a salesman. I'm still one of the best salespeople I think that I know, and I've trained a lot of people. But I learned that if I want to make millions, if I want to become a millionaire, and I want to have stability, and I want to be able to prevent the situations you talk about in your book, I need to build businesses. So I had to teach myself to become a business person, and that actually means you have to be a motivator and a leader and all those other things. So it sort of is an evolutionary kind of thing there that at the heart of it, I'm a salesperson, but if I rely only on myself as a salesperson, I'll just be self-employed, you know, and I wanted to be a business owner.
So let me ask you this question, Nathan, about, because I think one of the biggest challenges that great salespeople have is as they become business leaders and eventually, hopefully, great leaders, right, is the ability to unpack the expertise.
Sure.
Right? So you know, a lot of times guys like me or you say, listen, dumb shit, how do you not know that?
Yeah.
Right? Well, that ain't leadership.
No.
Right? In fact, that's browbeaten and that doesn't help anything.
Sure.
So did you go through that process?
100%. Yeah, 100%. So I struggled for years, actually. What was really interesting is that I all I knew was selling fire protection to the Amish. That's the only thing I know. So like that's like it's just in my blood, right? So when if I'd have Casey come work for me, let's just say he saw making money. Well, he would watch me do it, and he'd say, "It looks easy, man. That's awesome." But the reality is that my personality, my experience, you know, like there's just some things about that were 100% not duplicatable. Based on me. So the challenge that I had is that I'd have these people and I'd recruit them and they'd get fired up and I'd show them the opportunity and then they would fail. And so what I had to do is I had to figure out what about this process is duplicatable, void emotion, void experience, void personality.
Void your DNA.
Totally, yeah. The second I did that, and so what's crazy is now we have a VT with Brad and I have all this stuff on a platform, but it started with us making a website, recording videos, real cheap, shitty videos, where I'm like, all right, I got to figure out how do I dumb this process down so that I could hire a guy with no experience, teach him to go make money, you know. Funny thing is I actually had to pull myself out of the field so that they couldn't watch me do it because they have to see someone else do it or learn a different way. But it was a difficult process, you know.
It is. It's
very, very
hard.
difficult.
To unpack the expertise is very hard. I just had the conversation with one of my guys in here yesterday. So he came into my office and said, "Hey, did you hear about this deal? I'm supposed to be the leader, right?" I said, "No, tell me about the deal." And he basically goes on to just tell me what a screwed up deal it is.
Sure.
Right? And I'm saying to myself, geez, I thought I was about to get some good news on this deal. And all he is telling me how bad it is, right?
Sure, sure.
And so I just went right back to the process and said, did you do this, right? So we get applications from dealerships across the country.
Right.
And rule number one, look, we're in the credit business. So rule number one for us is don't get fucked, right? Get your money back.
Sure.
So how do you do that? You must communicate with the applicant.
Sure.
Rule number one when a guy comes in here, I don't care where you get your business from, But if you get it from a dealer and the dealer says, don't call my applicant, that's a red flag for fraud.
Sure, okay.
So we call every applicant. Well, guess what my guy didn't do?
Didn't call the applicant.
Decided to skip the process. And we got screwed. Turns out that the VIN number of the truck that we financed was inaccurate. We thought we were financing a 2003 big rig, and we actually financed a 1994.
Oh.
So, of course, the customer says, I thought I was buying a 2003. I thought I paid full price for a 2003, but now I have a 1994.
Wow.
And so all of that would have been headed off if the process had been followed of calling the customer, because the customer would have been like, I ain't buying a 94,
sure.
I'm buying a 2003, right? And I said to my guy, look, man, and I didn't say it quite as nice as this, right? Which I've tried to get away from,
Sure.
because I can be pretty harsh
Sure.
in those situations. But I said, as soon as you begin to recognize that the missing element is that you're still doing your process versus the process that we use,
Yeah.
and you're not trusting your alley cat street smarts,
Sure.
the built-in bullshit red flag smoke before fire mechanism that we all have,
Yeah.
until you start to trust that, you're never going to do amazing here. And
Sure.
the reason you can't trust it is because you don't trust it. That's the problem. And
Yeah.
that desperation is coming across in everything you do.
Sure.
Everyone is smelling that you're a wounded cat.
Yeah.
And you're attracting these freaking lions,
Yeah.
right? So it's tough to unpack the expertise, man.
So you just touched, you hit a ton of stuff just now, but there's so many people out there, and I talk about this a lot. I just spoke about this with a group of people, but too many people are focused on the products, which the product knowledge and all that's important, but less focusing on the process to which to deliver it. You know, the sales process, the delivery process is so important. And if you can't go back and pinpoint where you went wrong, you don't know what it is. So back to when you were saying like unpacking the expertise, I had to teach them how to sell. That's one part. But if I have them following a process, then when they make a mistake, I can just go backwards and find out where the mistake was. So It makes managing and scaling, it prevents the like, all right, let's sit down and figure out where you went. No,
Right,
I
let's
know
start from
exactly what
zero
you
every
did. I
time.
know what you did wrong.
Yeah.
We go right back to the process.
But Nathan, what happens, like in the experience that I'm talking about, when you realize that your person, through desperation, through fear, through insecurities, through just downright bucking the system,
Sure.
doesn't follow the process? How do you handle that? Because that's a big takeaway for people who are bucking the process in their organization
Sure.
now, or they're managing people who buck the process.
So I'm going to tell you my stance on it. I don't tolerate people that won't follow my process. And I deal with that a lot because people, I have people come to me all the time with a ton of sales experience. All right, I've worked for this guy, I've done this, I got this, and this. Dude, I don't care how much money you've made. If you can't follow our process, there's no room for you here. And it's not because I don't want them and I don't like them or anything like that, but I know because I'm a disciplined business person, it will not work out.
Yeah.
If you make the mistake once, you'll do it again, you know, until you, and culture is so important to me in my company. That's an indication that you're not fully buying into my culture. Totally. And so if I'm gonna force Adam and Casey, hypothetically, to do something, and I'm gonna let you vary from the process, beat it. You know, I mean, that's how we handle it. Now, we don't, I would probably sit down and talk with them first, but I've got very little tolerance for that.
Yeah, we call that side deals.
Yeah.
And there's no tolerance for side deals. Side deals are, Johnny's been with us a long time.
No.
Right? And, Johnny's married to Betty, and, Betty handles the books here. And, geez, we don't want to piss Betty off, so we better keep coddling Johnny. I call them side deals, and I don't put up with them either. But I am sensitive, very sensitive, to the desperation and the damage that desperation can cause about somebody's financial situation,
100% agree with that. I always ask myself, are they failing me or am I failing them?
Great question.
I go back to that. So like, if you, from what I know about you, I bet you're probably not failing them. Maybe you can have a little failure along the way, but to say that you're totally failing is probably a stretch,
So let's define that for a second, right? Because in the old days, I used to say totally failing was not explaining to them. But now I realize that explaining it once is not good enough.
Yeah, I've heard Grant say that before. He's like, I can go in and say something to the guys one time, they're not going to do it 3 times, 4 times. Sometimes you got to say it 5 times
Yeah.
or whatever the number is. You
Yeah.
know, so I can agree with that.
So you have to be relentless about it, and then you know, as our friend Brad Lee always talks about, right? Training is entertainment unless it's tested.
Sure.
And
yeah.
so how do you know that they're actually hearing you? And I think that's what really chapped my hide the most yesterday was because it was a discussion point that I had
Yeah.
so many times. And here's the big takeaway. Look, man, I'm sensitive to desperation, but I've seen fucking blackness, dude, in my career.
Oh, yeah.
The darkest of dark. How is this thing going to fix itself? And then it gets worse, right? And so the only way I know to deal with that is not to embrace it.
Sure.
Is to just keep fighting at a tougher, more intense rate. And so when I see capitulation,
Yeah.
when I see the person give in to despair and become weak,
Sure.
I just know that doesn't fix the
So
problem.
you just said, so I deal with that a lot too. I grinded my ass off. Like I'd have to drive. So where I worked when I started in sales was 2 hours from my house. So I'd drive 2 hours. 18-year-old kid going door to door to the Amish. 0 leads for me. No cell phones. We were just talking about your payphone. I'd have to go to a payphone to like check in with my uncle, and I'd have to go and make it happen. You know, I learned the very, very hard way to do it. Now, my company, we provide leads for our people.
Totally.
So I guess what I would ask you as a guy that I look up to, how much of my life, how much of my management should go back to, well, I didn't have to do that. When I you know, like I always heard my dad say, when I was a kid. So I find myself holding my past grind against some people sometimes. And I don't know if that's fair to them because they don't know what they don't know, you know, but I do find that like, man, you don't know what. I had a guy the other day tell me, you know, so he's going to listen to this too. I've been on the road so long. Dude, you don't know fucking being on the road, bro. Like, you don't know what it's like to be, like, literally to leave your house and know that I have to get a sale and I have to get a cash down payment so that I could put some gas in my car. Like, you don't know the struggle, man.
I say to the guys, I say the best way to look at it is as if the baby needs medicine. Right?
Sure.
And when your baby needs medicine and you don't know how you're going to get it that day, that is when despair begins to kick in, right? And I say to the guys in the office, you know, you really don't know what desperation is like until you don't know what deal's going to close today that you need, and the customer calls and says, I'm ready to go, and you drive to Timbuktu, and you sit and you take your punishment so that you can take that small check and you can race to hammer it at the bank to cover your fucking payroll.
Exactly.
Not my payroll. Your fucking payroll.
Yep.
That is tough.
And I've been there.
Dude, we all been there. At some point, all business owners that start, and this is so important for people to realize. I was talking to somebody yesterday about this, that everybody thinks that, you know, success starts from the bottom. No, that's just how it happened for me and how it happened for you. Dude, there's a lot of people that roll right into a nice business that never have to deal with that story, that when they hear that story, they immediately say, God, what a low life.
Yeah.
Who would ever put themselves in a position like that,
Sure.
right? But to me, that is unreplicatable, and there's this many people on the planet that will will do that.
Yep.
And that to me is a blessing, because for me that was just the way it went, dude.
Sure.
I mean, that's just how it was today, right?
100%, yeah.
And my problem, my friend, and I hope it's not your problem, but my problem is I did it for too long.
Yeah.
Right. I just didn't. I was saying to Patrick Bet-David yesterday, he's like, what's your biggest regret in business? I said, my biggest regret is that I didn't have a bigger ask. He goes, what do you mean? I go, I just didn't ask for enough big favors. I didn't ask enough of myself, right? It was these small little increments for too damn long. I'm 49 today. Yesterday I turned 49, and I should have done it at 39.
Sure.
I wasted a decade with too small of asks.
Wow.
And now I say to people, maybe if at the book launch party you heard me, I stood up there and said, I need 50,000 copies sold. Don't buy one fucking book. I need big orders. And you know what people started doing? Guy come up, 100 order books, 50 order books at that party, 75 order books. Ed Milet says, I want to help you sell 20,000 copies. Bring it on, baby. Let's go.
Got to ask for it.
But in the old days, I would have said, geez, it would have been real nice if you'd buy one book. I'd be really grateful, right?
It's huge, man.
The ask was too small, man.
It's big. You know, I'm fortunate that I don't have that part of the story for you. I'm 33 years old, you know, so I've been grinding since I was 17, you know.
Yeah.
So if you look at it, when you look at the big picture, my grind wasn't as long. I think I made some good decisions. It wasn't easy.
What were some of those decisions, though? That's what people want to know. What were some of the pivotal decisions that you made that really began to make up gaps in time?
Well, ironically, I didn't know you at the time, but I realized young that I needed more money. I mean, that's the truth. Not to just plug your book here, but the reality is that I learned at a young age that if I want to not have to go through what my parents went through, I have to have a lot of money.
Yeah.
You know, I don't care what people say. Even to this day, my mom would say, "We don't need a lot of money." She'd still say that. We don't need bullshit. Yeah. Bullshit. You don't need a lot of money. You do, and I think they get it. I think they're getting it now. But my
it helps when their son gives them a taste of it, right?
So, exactly. But the reality is that one of those points was recognizing that. The other thing was that when I always follow the money. So like it would be easy for me. It would have been quote unquote easier for me to try to find a job in sales close to home where I could sleep in my bed. But I knew that the money was 2 hours away. The money was in an unappealing community. It was in an area that, I mean, when my buddies are selling cars and all this other stuff, going to college, I'm selling fucking fire alarms to the Amish. Like it's the most uncool thing possible, you know. And so and people would make fun of me, you know, like they would oh, what are you selling alarm? Dude, yeah, I'm selling fucking fire alarms to the Amish, you know. So like that was for me, that was a big moment. Like I learned I got to follow the money. If that's where the money's at, that's where I'm going. Yeah. Once that business started to do well, and we were in the $1.5 million range for several years, gross sales, which those are pretty good margins. We're making great money for a guy that's 25. I realized my friends are broke. That was another big turning point for me. My friends are broke. Like me and my wife are 25 years old. We're going and doing whatever we want. We're having nice cars and stuff, and my friends can't do it. They can't even go to dinner with us. You know, we go on vacation. We stay at the Ritz or something nice, and they're getting a hotel in the street. So I'm like, it was a void in me. I felt guilty that there's no place for them in this business that I have. There just wasn't really room. So I need to go I need to start another business.
To hook your friends up? Not
to hook them up, to provide opportunity.
Wow.
That was a big motivator for me. I didn't give anybody handouts, but I wanted to make the opportunity there. You know, I wanted to create something that, even if they weren't my friends yet, people in the future, I could create an opportunity so that some young guy can have the same thing I did. Most people wouldn't do what I did for it, and I recognize that. So that was big for me. So I realized that I can make $450,000, $500,000 a year forever doing what I'm doing. Okay, but if I want to scale, if 450 is not enough, it'd take me 10 years to be a millionaire making that kind of money, saved up money.
Sure.
And so I realized I got to figure something else out. And so that's when I made a move into the energy space. And, if you look at my career, I'm kind of always going, it's all down the same path. We're doing the same kind of deal, the same people most of the time. But if there's a new opportunity, I'm investing in it. If there's another way to make money, I'm looking at it.
But you do the install or you do not do the install? You do. So you actually began to dissect the chain, if you will, and said, well, if the end of the chain is me and my guys on a truck installing in an attic, how do I backtrack and figure out make more money off of additional rungs on the ladder?
Sure. Well, that was a problem right in the beginning. I saw that the guys would go out and sell it, then they would sub out the installs. And I noticed that when I would talk to people in the industry, they'd all complain about that. Well, the installers are late.
Right.
Excuse me. The installers are late. They don't do this. Well, okay, why don't we get better installers? And let's pay them well, and let's make them full-time, and let's make this a career for them.
Yeah.
So I recognize little things like that, and so we in-house everything so that I can control it.
Got it. And then you began to even go further back and say, how do we now control the supply, which will go to my installers, which need to do what my guys sold.
Yeah, and look, there's no secret here. All these guys are going to listen to this probably this weekend because they're all here for the convention. But the reality is that I've only been a part of this company. I've only been buying product from this company for 5 years, and I'm an owner of that company now. I sit on their board, and I'm highly influencing a lot of the things that go into it. And part of that is because I care about the company and the people, and I like the owners. But the other part of it is that, dude, I need control. I need to have a say so. I need to be able to be providing good for my team. So and I want more money.
I think it's an advanced business decision, though, and I think a lot of people really don't get it. That selling a product that needs to be installed,
sure,
that in itself is a disconnecting sales process.
Sure.
You can sell, but it still has to be installed properly.
Yep.
And so a lot of people can sell it, but then they miss the second piece, which is the installation. But then there's the third piece that really only the advanced people really understand, that based upon certain economic conditions, you may not be able to get the shit.
Absolutely.
So I see that a lot in the roofing industry or in the concrete industry, right? Which we finance a lot of those guys. And so I'm watching the highly sophisticated guys continue to move back and dissect the chain, which is, well, I can sell concrete services, but now I probably should install just to ensure that what I sold was accurate.
Sure.
And then if I have to do the install, well, then maybe I should buy my own batching.
Yeah, I need to know where it's coming from.
I need to control where it's coming from. Right?
That's exactly it.
So.
And that's made it, honestly, it's huge. The other side of it is that if I'm going to grow and scale some huge companies, we're the largest dealer in the country for eco technologies. If I'm going to be a big dog in that, I want to be able to influence other people. I want to help other people do it. Yeah. You know, so there's a lot of advantages to me. They've helped me a lot. I mean, look, the reality is, I was making good money, but I would have never built a $16 million business in the industry that I was in. So they provided me a vehicle to go and change my life and change the lives of hundreds and hundreds of people that work with us. So, I mean, they've done a lot for me. They're great people. I want to do good things for them too. And I want to show other people how to do what we did. Because look, if it's one of these silly things to say, but if I can do it, anyone can do it. You know, I didn't have money, didn't go to college, sucked at school. You know, like. I
won't disagree with that. I mean, I feel the exact same way about what I've achieved. I believe I went to cooking school, man. It's the only place I got into. So, you know, I mean, there was no guidance of any kind whatsoever. By the way, as we talked about, that cost me time, right?
Right.
You saw that earlier than I did. I don't know exactly why. Maybe because you had some assistance with your uncle. Maybe you had a little better self-esteem.
He kidnapped me.
Dude, I was coming at it from a place of weakness for way too long.
Sure.
And so I think what I just
Were you
heard
scared?
you say,
or
I was never scared.
No.
And in fact, I knew it was destiny too. I was never concerned that I was going to be successful. I knew there was no. I knew. I remember the exact day that it happened. I must have been 6 or 7 years old. I remember exactly where I was in my house.
Sure.
And I said to my mother, "Does God have a plan for me?" And my mother said, "He knows exactly what you're going to do." I never doubted it from that moment on ever. By the way, I'm not super religious, right? I mean, I believe in God, but I'm not like, believe me, I don't.
Yeah.
I don't go to church every Sunday, all that sort of stuff. But from that moment on, I knew and never doubted that I was going to be okay. I just had no idea where it was going to come from, and nobody was pushing me in any direction, period.
Good for you, man.
So took a long time for me to figure that shit out. And I came from a place of weakness. Let me go back to what I heard you just say, which I think is unbelievably powerful, and people need to understand it. Dude, you got to go get your piece of the American pie. At some point, you got to go get your piece. But by you getting your piece, it has no impact on someone not getting their piece. Now, I've heard Cardone talk about this. He says, I think something to the effect of, you go to the marketplace, you get $5 million. It's like putting a glass of water in the ocean. It doesn't matter, right?
Sure.
Well, I didn't know. I mean, I didn't know that he was saying that when I came up with my belief, and you probably didn't either.
Right.
There's room for everybody.
Totally.
If you get your 16 or you go to 25 or whatever your final number is, it's fine. You're going to have lots of competitors who are doing just fine too. So this idea that we have to go in the marketplace and be takers rather than be contributors is totally wrong and small-minded.
100%. Yep. I couldn't agree more. I mean, look, you ever seen a CVS across from a Walgreens?
All the time.
Come on.
It's the point.
Same product,
right.
You know.
They're like, thank you for being first.
Yep, exactly.
Right? We're going to just tuck in and take whatever's left over.
Exactly.
So it's really important stuff. Let's get to the money piece. I want to play the money game with you real quick, all right? So guy is 18, doesn't think college is on the radar screen for him.
Sure.
For whatever that reason is. Maybe it's an aptitude thing, or maybe it's just a downright finance thing, which is such a big problem today. I mean, really, who the fuck has $60,000 a year to go to college anymore, right? If you're coming from nothing, who is signing up for $250,000 in student loan debt and thinking it's a good deal?
It's ridiculous.
But a lot of people are.
It is.
What do you tell that kid? He's 18. What do you tell him?
Man, I you know what I would say is, I got to be real careful with this. I think that the college system is broken. I really do. I think.
What do you got to be careful for?
I think that you rush into at 18 years old. I don't think you know what you want to do. I think that out of school you should go get a job and get in the marketplace and get some real life experience.
Yep.
Go to college when you're 19 or 20, when you have a little bit of time. I think that it's rammed down our throats, and this is still fresh enough to me. I've only been out of high school for 20 years or 18 years. I mean, it was rammed down your. You got to make a decision. You got to figure out what you're gonna do, dude. I don't know what the fuck I'm gonna do. Like I'm basically 18, like thinking like, well, not even. I was 16. Like, I guess I'll be a mechanic. I don't know, like what. And then and then the other thing is you're highly influenced at that age. I mean, we're always influenced. Okay, now I'm influenced by Cart Grant and Brad and people like that. But like at that age, who are you influenced by? Your friends. So I got buddies that are going to school to be this. It's like, well, fuck, I guess I'll be that too. So I guess my point is that I don't know if sales is for everybody. I know that most people couldn't do what I did. So I'm not suggesting you go drive across the country because that could be a wrong decision. But I do think that go out and get some real world experience. Never be too good for a job. Yeah. A lot of people just think that they can't go, whatever. Go get some experience. You never know. You could go dig swimming pools for a guy and latch on to a manager or a leader there that could inspire you and be a mentor to you, that could lead you in a different direction. I've never been too good to go run a sales call. I've never been above. Even now, I'm not above going and doing something because if it needs to be done, So I guess to answer your question, 18-year-old, go get some experience. Go do something.
And I have the answer because I've asked the question a lot, so it's a little unfair, right?
Sure.
This is the first time you heard it. But for me, it's go get paid to learn.
Yeah.
Go learn on somebody else's time.
Yeah.
Same answer, right? Let's move into our 30s now. You're how old?
I'll be 34 on April 1st.
Okay, so this is an interesting thing for you because you're in a position in your 30s that, a fraction of people are, right? With the success that you've had. So what do you tell the guy in his 30s? Let me paint a different picture than you. This guy is just starting a family.
Yep.
He or she is now married, probably both working, couple young kids, and they just did the house, the picket fence, and they're really starting to say, shit, right? I was much better in my 20s financially than I am in my 30s. Now where do we go from here, honey?
Sure. So I would start by looking at your current situation. Where do you work? What is the best case scenario where you're at? That'd be what I would look at. I think a lot of people think that it's just going to get better if they stay there, but look at who's above you. Look at who's above them. What could happen? If everything lines up, where could you be? Look, a family of four is going to take $50,000 a year after taxes to survive in this country. Yeah. If you're making $80,000 a year, you're barely living. Yep. All right. So I mean, if the best case scenario for you is $100,000 a year, you need to do one of two things. You either better start living really, really broke and like saving every penny, or you might want to start looking at a different vehicle. And I know that's so hard because, well, I worked so hard for this and I did this. What if you wasted 4 years in college, or you wasted all this time to get this job and you threw it all away to go get another job in a totally different industry, but it made the rest of your life better? Yeah. So many people are sitting in this place because they feel like I just invested this time. Well, dude, whatever. You're going to be broke the rest of your life. So that would be my first step. Take a look at what the best case scenario is.
Show me who's winning.
For the most of them, the people that would probably listen to this, it's not that good, dude. Like the best case scenario for you is not that great. So you probably need to find a different vehicle,
Yeah, I learned that early on, man. I went into the hotel business after being in the cooking business. And I remember like seeing the general manager of the hotel. He'd worked for the company like 25 years. He looked like he had it all made in the shade, had those cool, shiny suits.
He's miserable.
And I remember looking at him, and somebody's like, "Yeah, man, he makes $100,000." I'm like, "Fuck that shit."
Yeah.
$100,000? That motherfucker's worked here 20 years and he makes $100,000. Yep. I'm like, Hilton Hotels, you can keep your fucking hotel vouchers.
Exactly.
I don't need to get my 2 free stays at the Waldorf Astoria for working for Hilton Hotels. I'm like, fuck y'all. Yeah. That picture blows.
Yeah.
Mine is a much more crude example of what you just said, though.
Sure.
You've got to test the platform. Who, you called it vehicle.
Yeah.
Who within the platform of the vehicle is making it?
Yeah.
And what does that look like? Does it look worth it for you?
Sure.
It's such a hard message, dude. And we're talking over, a tight studio. And it's the craziest thing as business owners to be able to have that conversation with our team around us because what our team right now in the studio should be saying to themselves is, fuck, man, what does that mean for me? And my response is, go get your piece of the American pie. If I can help you with it, great. But if not, you have to leave us.
Well, that was the
crazy
problem.
To hear.
You go back to my Amish business. That was the problem. What's the best case scenario for Brian, this guy that worked for me, or Josh, or Corey, these guys that work for me? What's their best case scenario? Dude, you're not going to be me. I'm not going to sell you this business. So best case scenario for them wasn't that good, and I felt guilty about that. So I wanted to create a company where I've got guys that make $1 million this year. Mm-hmm. Like that. I wanted to find an industry where the vehicle could give them what, it doesn't mean they're going to get it, but it's there if they want it, you know. You know, there's other people too that they look and they're like, man, I really love my job. I like it. I'm happy here. It's what I want to do. Some people, you just need to be happy with what you're doing. That's not me. Some people, I get this a lot because people follow my podcast and they follow me on Facebook and they get all jacked up about watching what we do. And they come to me and I'm like, dude, you kind of like your life. Like you don't want what I have. Yep. You couldn't handle the stress that I have, you know? So some people with Facebook and social media and all these outlets, you know, they need to just take a look at what they have and maybe just enjoy it, you know.
They make the entrepreneurial journey seem, you know, exciting and wonderful. And I believe for 99% of the people, they shouldn't. By the way, it puts tremendous pressure on the employer now to create a different environment for the employee, right? And like I love how Reid Hoffman, the founder of LinkedIn, does it. They do 6 or 12-month contracts max. Yeah. That's it. He believes that they can get 110% commitment from each other for 6 to 12 months max. And then you know what they do? They sit down at the end of the contract and say, how was that? Did we have fun?
Sure.
Should we go another 6 months? Yeah, let's do it. Okay, great. Right? Because you can't trust the environment on either side anymore for a lifetime.
That's a good point.
We just got to look at it for these short spurts. And if we can't deliver that opportunity, the employee has the requirement to take care of themselves and their families and go get it.
Yeah.
And I talk about that in the book, and that's one of the hardest things. It's probably why Google isn't going to hire me to come in and speak. Because I say if Google isn't giving you what, not specifically Google, but if your employer isn't giving you what you want, you have the responsibility to pack your shit and leave.
Absolutely.
And that's going to hurt me. Where's it going to help me? It's going to help me in MLM, or it's going to help me in franchise models or things like that, or an entrepreneurial environment. But in a big company, IBM ain't hiring me to talk about you need more money.
Well, and the reality is, and especially in my world and yours too, everybody has an expiration date. So I always look at that. In fact, I remember the first time I had a recruit. This is when I still worked for my uncle. I recruited a guy. He you know, was working under me. I was making an override on him. And when he quit, I was like, what the fuck? Like, I did all that and he quit? I remember him, and again, I got a lot of little nuggets from Uncle who said, everybody has an expiration date, man. You know, Nathan, you got to understand that people are going to do a couple things. They're either going to die and go away. They're going to want a different opportunity, you know, somewhere else, and so they're going to leave, or they're going to need to get promoted and make more money. You know what I mean? So like, I learned at a young age, I can't sit back and just count the money I'm making on one guy. I need 100 guys making money on him, because they're all going to expire at some point. And so my challenge as a leader and as a builder and a mentor to people is I want to stretch that expiration date as long as I can. And I do that with culture. I do that with processes and training and all that stuff.
Dude, it's great advice. I used to be a really bad guy in that expiration date, on that expiration date. I used to grab a box.
Bad guy to your people? Or
totally. I'd grab a box, say, you dumb
Get the fuck out of here.
You dumb shit. Get your shit. And, dude, I remember it firing people. And I remember, and by the way, my anger was not at their choice. My anger was that they were missing an opportunity that was so much easier for them than it was for me, because I'd filled all the voids, right? Whether it was leads or systems or training or opportunities or credibility, right? Or pricing in our model.
Sure.
Right? And dude, I remember watching grown men. I was such a scumbag, and I would watch grown men at their workstations, man, and they were like, they would like take their picture of their family off the desk and put it in their box, right? And I was standing like next to him like a beast, like an animal. And then they'd go in and they'd open their drawer and they'd take like, you know, in a panic, they'd take like granola bars and put it in their box, you know, and they'd fucking take supplies.
And they're never going to use it.
They were just frazzled. I had just sent them into this horrible place. Right? Mm-hmm. And I just remember saying, I will never be that guy again. And, you know, today, and I save all of them, today I get thank you notes from people who leave this company.
Sure.
And they say, thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for the trust. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the way we finished, right? I save all of them. You ever see Arnold Palmer's, ever see the documentary on Arnold Palmer?
I have not, no.
You know who I'm talking about, the golfer?
Oh, yeah.
Anybody in here ever seen Arnold Palmer? So he died not too long ago, but
Yeah.
But when they filmed Arnold Palmer, he would always walk people around his office, and every inch of his walls of his office were filled with notes from people. And I remember saying to myself, that son of a bitch saved those for all those years, right? I don't save any of that shit. Like I rip up my birthday cards and shit. You know? I started saving them, and then it started to fuel this momentum. And I began to say, wow, how do I treat people so good at the end that they actually want to thank us for the way we finished? And dude, it's so unbelievable when you get stuff, and you might get it. I'm challenging the audience.
I got to tell you, I got to give you be real honest with you about something. I actually have, in fact, we got this recently from a guy, and I actually made fun of it, and I feel guilty about that. If I'm real honest, I got this. I'm like, this fucking guy's thanking me. Like I fucking torched his ass. What's wrong? Like, and this has happened a couple times. I've never looked at it the way you're saying it. It actually makes me feel kind of bad now.
Well, you
know what I'm talking about, right? There's one guy in particular that like he still messages me, hey man, just like dude, what the fuck? We're not friends, man. Like it's weird. But I look at it differently now. I feel kind of guilty about that, actually.
Yeah, well, I mean, you got to go through it, right?
Sure.
We got to go through the fire, man, to see the other side. So, anyway, I just think that version of it all, man. And by the way, I don't make any apologies for any of it.
Yeah,
I don't. I really don't. It's just it was the path that I had to take.
Sure.
And at the end of the day, man, people leave my organization for pretty much one reason: they just didn't work hard enough.
Yep.
That's really how
Always
it plays
the
out.
case. Yeah.
It wasn't that we didn't care about them or try or make it. They just didn't freaking grind.
Well, and and so you've got people in here that are making it, and you made it, and there's people with less skill probably than this person that didn't make it. And that's what I always say. We just lost a good guy recently, and I'm like, dude, this guy had every opportunity. He could have done it. If this guy did it, and 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 this guy did it, what was different about him? It goes back to what we started this whole conversation on. He didn't follow the process every single time.
Yeah.
I've never had a guy that followed the process start to finish. And when I say follow the process, I don't just mean the sales process, but I mean coming to work early. I mean training every day. I mean
dressing for success,
being good to your wife, all that stuff. I mean, it's more than just go running the sales call.
Yep.
When they deviate from the process of what successful people in the industry have done, they don't become successful. It just never happens.
Yeah.
And if they do, and if there's someone out there that's actually being successful right now that isn't following the process, they're gonna fail. It's going to happen.
Dude, I like what you just said about the thing at home. I was doing a telephone interview with a guy in Michigan who wanted to come down and work for us. And I said, well, what are you talking about? Like, your family's going to move down from Michigan to Dallas? And he's like, no, I'll just commute. I'll fly down on Sunday. I go, well, dude, there's no chance you're going to come and work for me, because I want my guys going home to their families at night, right? Yeah. Look, we're going to have to sleep in a few hotels. We got to go to a few trade shows. We got to call on some customers. I get all that.
Yeah.
But, dude, I'm not going to be the guy that keeps you away from your 5-year-old from Sunday to Friday. It just doesn't fit.
Sure.
So I'm grateful for you calling me. I wish you the best of luck. But unless you're moving to Dallas, it ain't happening.
The support from home is so important. And when people are you talked really about that desperation part. When people are wanting a new opportunity, they say they'll do anything. It seems like, I can make that work. But, man, you got to have that. I mean, if your home is not solid, if your relationship with your wife and your kids is not solid, you might have a little bit of success, but it will go away.
I was talking to a guy yesterday as we draw to a close, though, because I think that balance at home is important, right? Like, so yesterday's my birthday. I got home, saw my boys, and then I really just wanted a couple hours to just chill for myself, right? And my buddy, I love the guy, sends me a note of his buddy's neighbor whose kid committed suicide his sophomore in high school in Newport Beach, California, right? And my buddy sends me the kid's suicide note. And so I'm chilling, and I have that email open. My wife walks in and says, hey, I thought you were chilling. What do I thought you wanted power down. When we say power down in my house, it means no electronics and all this stuff, right? She's like, what are you doing? I said, man, Rick just sent me this letter, this suicide note. And she's like, well, what's it say? And I said, well, I really don't want to read it, right? I really don't want to read this letter from this kid at this moment, right? And I have a sophomore in high school, too.
Sure.
And she's like, why you got to be a jerk? I go, what do you mean? She's like, why won't you share the letter with me? I'm like, no, I will share the letter with you. I just don't. Well, why don't you want to read it? Don't you want to be concerned about our kids? Maybe we can. right?
Yeah.
Just freaking steamrolled.
Going, yeah.
Right? On my birthday, 10 o'clock at
Yeah.
night, right? I mean, it just went downhill. And so this guy I was with yesterday, a different guy, not my buddy Rick, but we're having a conversation. His phone's ringing off the hook, right? He's moving into his house, and it's his wife, and he's like, sweetheart, I promise you I'm going to call you in 5 minutes. And what does she do? Probably just like your wife or mine. They just keep talking, right? Yeah. No, sweetheart, give me 3 minutes now. I promise you dude, there's no freaking magic formula to it, man. When you're burning, when you're burning hot, there's shrapnel behind us.
That's exactly it, man.
Right? So you just got to do your best.
Yeah, you got to do it. You got to love them, and you got to, you got to make the time. And that power down thing's that's huge. I mean, in my world, that's probably my biggest challenge is that I'm go. I've got a 8-year-old and a 10-year-old little girl that.
You got 2 girls?
2 girls, yeah.
Ooh.
They look different than they did 4 years ago. I get these little time things that pop up from 4 years ago. I'm like, holy fuck, that seems like yesterday. She was dancing in a little tutu. Now she's playing on her fucking phone. You know what I mean? Like, what the, so like that's a big challenge for me. My kids are with me here in Dallas. I bring them as much as I can. But that's a big one, man. Because when it's all said and done, the big thing for me is when I will take my last breath someday, whether I'm conscious when it happens or not. I'm going to take a breath, and I don't want to look back and regret anything. And one of those things is my career. I don't want to look back and wish I'd made more money, wish I'd have helped more people, wish I'd done that. But I definitely don't want to look back and wish I'd have spent more time with my kids and my wife.
It's a hard one, man.
It's
a big balance. And I'll tell you, as they get older, what I've learned, I have a 16, 13, 12, what I've learned is that they really don't want me for 8 hours a day.
Yeah, just a little bit.
They want you for a good hour.
Yep,
you know what I mean?
That's exactly it.
And we can all do that.
Yep.
All right, listen, man, I learned a lot.
Me
It was
too.
great. I mean, I'm really happy that you came in. Pleasure to meet you.
Sure.
I say this about social. 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, I had a meeting with our group, and I said, you guys mark my words, social media is going to go down as the biggest waste of time in the history of business.
We've been friends on Facebook back when we could have friends on Facebook. Like you and I are friends, and we just met, and I'm like, dude, I've been friends with this guy. Like I haven't had a new friend in years,
Facebook redefined what friend is, right?
It's crazy.
But my point is that, man, social has done the exact opposite for me. It has totally enhanced my life,
Absolutely.
being able to meet guys like you. So
for sure,
there's only one thing for you to do, buddy. In the studio, you got to
sure.
sign my booth,
Can't
all right?
wait, man.
Dude, thanks for coming in.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Okay, cool. Bye, everybody. We'll see you down the road.